which is very much used in Ludhiana. Basic custom duty has been reduced on titanium dioxide, which is again used in the textile industry from 10% to 7.5%. Full exemption from custom duties to aramid yarn and fabric, which is used in the specialized textile like bulletproof helmets, bulletproof vests and all that. So these are some of the specific measures announced in this budget. But tax measures are only one of the elements in a government's overall textile policy. These are some of the measures. We have a large number of export promotion schemes which are applicable to textile industry as well. Whether it is drawback, whether it is EPCG, whether it is tough special scheme for tough scheme for textile industry, focus market scheme, focus product scheme. There are so many schemes are there which are there to encourage the textile industry. And Finance Minister has announced, I am not a general economist, he has announced certain things about textile industry. Some hubs are to be created all over several parts of the country. He has announced, which I am able to immediately recall. You read his budget speech. He has announced setting up of some textile hubs in somewhere in the south, in Andhra, in 3-4 places he has mentioned. Not able to exactly recall at this point of time, because that is not my core subject. So there is definitely a feeling of positivity of encouraging the textile industry in the heart of the government. And apart from that, you have special economic zone schemes. You have 100% EOU schemes which are applicable to textile industry. So if the industry feels that they will be able to perform better in that environment, they can set up, unit can be set up in SZ, unit can be set up as 100% EOU. We have area where exemption schemes available. Of course, that period is over now. But so there are a large number of schemes which are available for the textile industry. I will not be able to recount all of them. Global competition is there. Textile is an item where there is a lot of global competition. Bangladesh is able to compete more because the labor is cheap. China is able to compete more because the labor is cheap, and also because China, we don't know what kind of subsidies they give. In India, we are very open and we are WTO compliant in all respects. We are law abiding in that respect. So I think there is if you have any particular suggestion how the textile industry can be encouraged, give those specific suggestions. I am sure we have a full-fledged Ministry of Textiles to encourage the textile industry. They will look at it, and if something needs to be done in the Ministry of Finance, it can be done by Ministry of Finance as well.
I think, sir, one of the most important things that we need to do is that make sure that the cotton is the basic raw material and the dominant consumption of raw materials to cotton. If its availability can be made sure to the industry on a regular basis, rather than jumping on to exports of cotton. I do not really understand the logic as to why this country should be exporting cotton when you can create some more value addition in-house, encourage spinning, encourage garmenting, and then add value for the same quantity of the cotton. One day we impose a ban on cotton, third day we say no, a ban is not there. The government of India even doesn't know as to how much cotton has already been exported. In the beginning we say that we are going to allow exports up to 80 lakhs. But when we wake up, we find that 94 lakhs of it have already been exported. Then we suddenly have to say, okay, put ban on this. Then again a group of ministers comes and says, no, lift the ban, allow the cotton to be exported. I think we have to really understand the particular industry which is contributing to the exports from this country to the extent of more than 10% needs to be given a treatment which it deserves.
He raised a very interesting point actually. But I would like to ask you, Mr. Goyal, farmers, they export cotton only when they get very good price in the international market. So what can be the actually combating measure for this?
It's not the farmer per se, it's basically a trader who's making money at his benefit. I think that is very good distinction.
To some point it percolates, adds the profitability of farmer as well. So, I mean, when you say that availability of cotton should be made certain for the industry, what do we do with that problem?
See, I am not saying that you ban exports of cotton, but please make a proper balancing and start exporting at a time when you find that the cotton availability is good enough for the industry. Otherwise, why would we have cuts? Why are we allowing the industry to invest heavily to upgrade itself in order to enhance its competitiveness? If we do not want to make use of that competitiveness, what is the use? If you cannot give that safety to the industry, I think it will be useless to invest money in the industry.
Okay.
We also agree that
Mr. Purohit would like to add.
They are political decisions. They are not economic. They are political decisions. Finding this cotton and then sometimes giving.
But sir, we can't segregate like that. Economics doesn't say it's not.
Excise should be abolished from the garment industry.
Yes. Well,
it is always a chicken and egg story which comes first. And
Excise should be abolished from the garment industry. It is a labor intensive. There are crores and crores of people involved in this, and 70% cost is labor. And you are excising labor, not the product.
I think yes.
excise duty is only on branded garments. There is no excise duty on unbranded garments, first of all. And also in the branded garments, there is a very liberal small-scale exemption scheme available. So all the people who need to be encouraged, they have to get some protection. We have to match different objectives of fiscal policy. So this scheme has been properly calibrated. That's all I would like to say. Of course, your suggestion is welcome that there should not be any excise duty on garments. Why should there be any excise duty on cycles also? Why only garments? There should be no excise duty on anything. So anyway, I'm not going to that. So on the question of
WTO, as per WTO, what are the import duties and what are our import duties? Are we following the WTO permissible maximum or? I understand that 40 to 45% is the peak duty in WTO, but our duties are much lower. So we can increase import duties, we can
I want to say something.
It's a fact that we are much lower than our 12.5%. In fact, we are much higher. And the last 4 years, they have not given more than a 10%. In fact, this year, every year we discuss whether we should lower the peak. So in that sense, you have to maintain a regional balance as well. It's not enough that I can, if I have a 40% tariff, like in bicycles, I can give you an example. When we are examining the proposal this time, in bicycles we are unbound. There is no binding. We can go to 150% also. That doesn't mean that each country should operate at the highest possible tariff. In some sectors, yes. In wines and spirits, 150 is the bound rate. We are operating at the maximum peak. But in general, our industrial, all the non-agricultural goods, the peak is 10%, which we have reached for the first time for bicycles.
There are other issues across the table which affect and which bring ends to the industry. It's not only the duty rates or the import export. I just leave it at that.
But I wonder, nobody has thanked Mr. Goyal for hiking the import duty for imported cycles.
I did.
I had it. Okay. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, it was really a very interesting session.
There are some small things about some clarification which I'd like to raise. They affect a large number of people.
Perfect.
I think one is about the amendment of Rule 14 of Amendment under notification number 18, where we have substituted the word like taking and utilizing to taking and utilizing wrongly. No, well, the problem has been sorted out now that if you only taken or utilized the some credit, you can always have safeguard and the department will not charge you for this. But I am foreseeing a problem in cases which were relating to the last year or year after year. A lot of adjudication is already going on. Now, if we can retrospectively even make change like this, this will, I think, lead to doing away with a lot of litigation. This is one issue. Other is about we were talking about imposition of duty retrospectively. Well, this seems to be a controversial issue, but then textile industry is also affected to an extent with this. So polyester fiber or polyester filament yarn made out of waste of plastic or PET bottles has been brought under the duty structure retrospectively from 20th June 2010. It's proposed. And this is going to hit people very hard, the few units which are already operating. Because they have already sold their materials, they have not charged duty, and the transaction have taken already finalized. At this stage, if they are asked to pay duty, which may run into tens or 20s of crores depending on the size of the unit, it will be almost leading to the closure of such units, and we need to really look into it as to how to save such units. And also, we should look at that this kind of fiber, which is cheaper in cost, is basically meant for poor men. Now, will it be really prudent to tax it at this stage? And also, it is in a way environmental friendly. PET bottles which are waste and they create environmental habits, those are basically used in making this kind of fiber. Therefore, there is merit in saying that this can be looked at little more positively. Third, in case of service providers, if somebody provides some service and if he doesn't get the full value realized from the recipient of the service, the adjustment is given for the deficient value that it drives. But there are certain cases where the backends may happen. Somebody has provided a service and he doesn't get money from the service provider, service recipient. In those cases, he doesn't get any kind of fund or adjustment. I think having a full bad debt is worse than having a deficient payment. Even this needs to look at as to how to handle such kind of cases. Then through notification number 15 this year, we have said that there are certain services which will be taxed at certain rate and the person liable to pay this will be required to pay. And here we are also used to the system of reverse charge mechanism, where we have said that 10 out of 7 products will be such where 100% duty will be paid by the recipient of the service, and there are 3 services wherein it will be split between the recipient and the provider for different percentages. But my question is that there will be certain cases where the service provider, the turnover is below the exempted limit, and he then doesn't pay any kind of service tax for his share. Now, what would be the situation of the service recipient in this case? Whether he will also not be required to pay any service tax, or he will be asked to pay full service tax, that of the recipient and the service provider. What will be the real situation in this case? I think this needs to be clarified. Then, sir, okay, I'll respond to later. You can please clarify.
The issue of the SANBAD credit is concerned of implies that of course is only prospective and not prospective. Of course, this is again an example of a case where courts have held that interest would be levied even where it is wrongly taken and not utilized, and government has gone ahead and made an amendment to the law to give benefit to the SSE. Now, as far as the second issue is concerned regarding the service in case of reverse charge, it's for the first time that 3 services reverse charge has been introduced, largely as an anti-avoidance measure, because they are in areas of works contract, rent-a-cab, or manpower hiring, that too where service providers are in the nature of individuals or partnership firms. Because number of cases were coming where they were charging tax from the service recipient, but they were not paying to the exchequer. So to that extent, it has been split between a service receiver and a service provider. And still service receivers have been given the option, part of the payment has been made by the service provider so that they can utilize their credits. That is why it has been split in various ratios between the service provider and the service recipient. Now, as far as the third is concerned regarding where a service provider is in a small scale sector and service recipient is not in the small scale sector, this issue is of course being examined. And earlier it was in fact when the negative list it comes into force, you should expect something greater clarity on this issue by that time.
I have another very important and very interesting situation. Fundamentally, I think the criteria for taxing any services should be commercial in nature. But in the list of the services that we have included, and we have enlarged that list, there is one definition of service, why even the family disputes can be brought into the...
Which one?
Even a small family dispute, I'll give you an example. Maybe some imaginary officer sometimes brings it and invites it and takes it to the table. Now, one of the services says that the service could also include agreeing to stay away from certain conditions or to take certain discomfort or do certain things for consideration, which could be both in monetary terms or also in terms of time. Now, in this situation, there are many cases of family settlements in India where certain man agrees not to do certain things for consideration. Where would you classify this? That this will be taken as a service or what?
No, if a certain act is done for a consideration, or if he forbears to do an act, or then of course it will amount to a service in broad terms. On that there is no doubt. But then in the nature of transaction has to be seen. It could come under one of the exceptions. Of relating to immovable property, was it a transaction only relating to immovable property, or action only in money. So in those, of course, this is a new area which has again been introduced. There are going to be it is going to be areas where, of course, it is not specified, where forbearance, where I forbade to do an act for a consideration is involved, then of course service tax will become chargeable.
My that it should be limited to the commercial transaction, where the commercial
You see,
transaction.
the whole issue was examined across, like in UK where from them services, there is a commercial angle to it on a substantial scale, it is said. But because of interpretation issues in India, we have left it only to the level of consideration. And then threshold limits are of course always available.
Okay, all right. Now my question is, take for example a very imaginary question that I'm posing to you. Let's say a husband tells a wife to do something, and they agree to do it for a consideration. Okay, well you do this, and you get this much reward in return. Right? Where would you classify this?
She's going to reflect it in the income tax return of his wife.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm not going to
Reflected in the return. Normally what the husband would leave to a wife would not be reflected in the income tax return of the wife.
So
But anyway, these are issues, you know.
I am only trying to
raise it in wife?
That's right.
Let us not have unnecessary fear, Mr. Goyal.
Yeah.
We are talking of service, because we have gone to the negative list, so we have to have some definition. The definition is that it has to be an activity, it has to be an economic activity between two persons, and there has to be consideration for that. That's general. But in case this kind of issues which you are raising, we are not going to say that you charge service tax for friendship, for dispute, for this and that. So we are not, you are going into law of courts, you are going into all those things. That's not the intention, but anyway, these are quite imaginative ideas.
They get taken down to the document, and these documents can be
But there's one very important exclusion from the definition of service, which is actionable claims. So in case of actionable claims, they go out. So a lot of them would get covered in that. And as Sir said, this is a new area. You should look at the positives of it, of the simplification. Of course, if these areas crop up, in case they do, I don't think they will.
My intention is basically to raise an issue for the sake of avoidance of litigation arising out of small.
No, definitely. We will avoid. That is the whole intention behind this.
Another thing about customs which I want to say. By amendment of section 153 of customs, we are saying that the notices or summons or orders can be served by courier services, which till now are being done by the government postal service. But knowing the service levels of the courier services in the country, will it not be better to specify certain courier services for the department to send the notices or the kind of summons or orders, so that there is a certainty and the SSC does not lose his legitimate right to appeal in time or to receive the orders on time. It may be better not to certify and also fix liability of these couriers if they do not deliver on time.
No, actually it is a facilitation measure. Earlier it was limited to couriers, to the district posts, and state posts, and that was causing issues. So what has been proposed now is that courier service is also an recognized, accepted mode of service. And the concerned commissioner is going to notify a few courier services for this purpose.
Yes,
it's not that any
that's what
service.
my intention is.
It is there, it will be notified to the commissioner customs concerned, and then only it will be
And to a certain degree, their liability should be fixed that within how many days they should deliver. Because it should not happen that they just go and they say, well, we have delivered to somebody, and that somebody will.
No, I'm sure the service delivery standards will be fixed when you're identifying the or recognizing the service providers. And as regards the stable driver from pet waste, the issue was because of the Chandler note, it was falling. There is no denying the fact it is textile material. What was being held was because of Chapter Note 1 that it is not a textile material. I don't think there is any denying the fact that it is textile material. It's a fiber. It's a fiber. I can understand the other part of it where you're saying it is out of waste. But that's a different consideration altogether. But in the normal course, what we have tried to fix from the time when the dispute started is that it is a textile material irrespective of what Chapter Note 1 says. And basically what it does is it regularizes the litigation. It was not that litigation was not going on. We are not starting any fresh litigation on this. This has been a dispute and we have just covered the gap where it was.
Point to the earlier issue regarding the service provider and because the whole notification has been issued under the provisions of the section regarding the manner of payment. So effectively, if in case the service tax is not payable, then it does not shift to the receiver. case it is payable, only then it shifts to this. But this would be clarified. This issue is already under
What working regarding to bad debt of
that of course is there in TOT rules.
Sir, about recipient and service provider also, no, I raised that issue. That if the service provider is outside the net because of the
That's what I'm saying.
One is that he doesn't pay that if he is below the limit. Right? Then as a recipient, I also don't pay that.
Yeah, even then you don't pay.
So both are
Because it is what is shifted is the liability to pay. The liability arises from the provisions of the of the charging section and the exemption notification.
Perfect. We're almost at the end of this discussion. But before that, we'll take 3 questions from the audience.
Ready-made garments have been allowed to be imported duty-free. And Ludhiana is one of the hubs in terms of producing the garments. And many of them are branded garments because now no garment is lower than 200 rupees, which is capital industry. And everybody keeps a brand. Whether he's selling at 200 rupees, there will be always a brand on that. My question is that is only the custom duty is free and the countervailing duty to keep at par with the local excise duty on the garments will be applicable, because it is estimated that in the next 5 years the import of duty-free garments from Bangladesh to $5 billion is going to happen, and this will have a big impact on the revenue.
CVD is chargeable. CVD is chargeable, and as it is, we are keeping a close watch on the imports from Bangladesh. In fact, the imports from Bangladesh, ever since it has opened up also, that clearly at the budget time we had again reviewed, it has not been such alarming proportion. Yes, there is a fear because it is zero.
But there is no MRP on that. So retail prices, because you have to give a basement on how to put it, because this big issue on.
So let's understand, the MRP, they are required to discuss, otherwise what was the declared value on that? If the issue is that the declared value is much lower, please let us know.
Yeah, this we have to see both from Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, because it's going to affect the Indian government.
The imports from Nepal, I know for sure, they are supposed to declare RSP so that they can be given abatement. Even before this levy came, because the exemption was conditional, so the CVD levy was always there. It is not that the CVD levy has come into play only with the branded garment duty. It is an optional exemption to you, and therefore the CVD was always applicable. So that's been a long-standing practice, but if you have cases where you find it has not been levied, let us know.
Sir, I am Dinesh Lamna, representing garment industry. Sir, I have 2-3 concerns regarding this excise duty on garment industry. In particular, like you have said, it's in this budget you give a relaxation from 55% to 70%. So it means like we are paying a duty on 30% of MRP. In that case, if you aware of the fact, in this Indian market, how many people are purchasing the real branded garments, which is the MRP X factory price multiplied by 3.3 times. Normally, in the Indian market, what is manufacturer's practice and what is the retailing practice is, we are manufacturers of Ludhiana, we manufacture the goods under our own brand or somebody else's brand. In that case, in retail market, normally those things are being sold in 100% plus. Means, if we are manufacturing a t-shirt of 200 rupees, that is being sold in 400 rupees. So, we have to pay a duty on a factory price. Now, 24 rupees we are paying a duty in this case. And the margin what we are getting by manufacturing of that t-shirt is not more than 15 rupees. So everybody start thinking how to evade the tax. 24 rupees is a tax, 15 rupees is a margin. So your whole value net chain becomes basic. Unhealthy practices start in the market. This is the one concern. Secondly, when we pay duty on a branded real garments like a company like Reliance or somebody, they are asking, you have to pay a duty because you are a manufacturer. we pay duty at our stage, and we get some payment of our goods, wherever we supply, after 90 days. And now we have to pay interest on the duty also. That we will get our payments, including the excise duty, after 90 days. So when we go to the bank, they ask, we are not going to enhance your working capital. And in normal practice of the banks, they say your working capital limit more than 90 days is invalid. We are not going to finance that. In that practice, when we ask, we are level with the additional duty, we need at least 10% or 12% more enhancement in our working capital. Then bank says, no, it is none of our job. Talk about the things with the Ministry of Finance or excise duty. Only industry in this country where there is no SENVAT available or a raw material value available. We can't get anything as a SENVAT credit in raw materials. There is no tax in the fabrics. There is no tax on yarns. So what to do? Where to get? It is a penalizing of an Indian industry. Then we are hearing when GST will come, this all problems will be over. So in GST, we are providing almost labor to all of the country, this manual work. When this is in a manual work, we are paying almost 32% ESI and PF in a way of that, to the laborer. And in our garment manufacturing, it's a manual work, which is 25% of our cost is the labor. When this GST will come, this is a penalization on the industry again. How will get the benefit of those things of their 4 or 5% ESI or 22% of their PF? Because in normal practice, the migrant labor, when they come to us, they don't pay from their pocket. Both the shares, industry is being paid. So these are the concerns. Please.
Sympathize with what you have said. Because of these, some of these issues, the rate of duty which has been put on garment industry, that's only on the ready-made garment industry, that's only 3.6%. Otherwise, the rate of duty is 12%. You are not appreciating that. So because of this problem, because no standard rate is not available to you, and other issues, rate of duty has been kept at 3.6%. You can't have a situation where a shirt is being sold for 1,000 rupees and doesn't pay any excise duty, and doesn't pay any tax. At the same time, there is a shirt which is being sold for 100 rupees, that one doesn't pay any tax. So there has to be some kind of equity also. So there are multiple considerations which the government has in mind when they are having their textile policy, when they are having taxation policy. So I do sympathize with your problem. That is why the rate of duty has been kept at a very bare minimum.
Sir, it is not a bare minimum. Normal practice in the industry.
We can discuss this.
Sir, I am Dr. A.R. Sharma, Chairman cum Managing Director of Raisila Health Foods Limited, Dhuri. We are the country's largest producer of refined rice bran oil, a unique oil produced from the outer brown layer of rice. Right now, I am representing the Solvent Extractors Association of India as its past president, which is a supreme body of the vegetable oil industry and trade in India, formed in 1963, having 850 members. So we, in our pre-budget memorandum, had raised a very serious and a genuine issue concerning the vegetable oil refining industry, which has escaped the kind attention of yourself. Maybe it is just a clarificatory nature. Sir, our main product is refined edible vegetable oil, which is not liable to any excise duty right now. It's nil rate of duty. As per notification 89/95, if the main product is not excisable, then you need not pay any excise on waste bearing that and scrap. So we had been clearing all our residues, known as gums, waxes, soap stocks, under this particular notification without paying any duty. And for the past many years, throughout the nation, in many states, the people have not taken able licenses of excise duty. In some states, authorities raised doubts about this, issued a show cause notice. It was adjudicated at the AC level in Calcutta, and even the funds were granted. And ultimately, in one particular case, the matter went up to the CSTAT Bangalore. It was decided in favor of the industry, and the department went in appeal to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court dismissed the appeal of the department. And no review was preferred, no curative was there, so the issue acquired finally. And ultimately, in two of the cases of related to this UP, the commissioner, after writing a letter to the member excise CBC, had withdrawn these two appeals on the same issue before the CSTAT New Delhi. But it's really unfortunate, in our cases, there's only 7 cases relating to the Punjab state only. The CSTAT, the department disputed this issue before the CSTAT. In those cases, it had withdrawn. But in our case, it disputed, and the Honorable CSTAT passed a negative order, saying that waste is something which has no value. And if waste is something which has no value, does not need any presumption notification at all. So now we have preferred an appeal for the Supreme Court, but sir, it will take 7 to 8 years to decide the matter, even if it is elevated by the Supreme Court. Now, we have been asked by the department to pay duty. We have started paying duty. 7 parties. There are 150 parties, but the 7 parties of this state has been asked to pay duty, and we started paying duty, and become incompetitive at all. And we are being asked by the department to deposit the past dues also. Our commissioner had been very kind enough to give us some breathing time for that. We requested them that we have already raised this issue before the authorities. Sir, you have rightly said that retrospective amendments, retrospective clarifications are not only against the assessees, but sometimes it is in favor of the assessees also. You have rightly mentioned about 11C. There is a general practice that nobody is paying duty. Then in that case, you have the right to be able to confirm duty.
Please put the question.
There is section 37B, which authorizes your good self to issue an order in the interest of uniform. So we have again made a request by our letter dated 9th of March, and this matter is pending for your good self. We have given time up to end of April only by our Honorable Chief Commissioner. So we request yourself to immediately decide this issue. So there's burden unnecessary which has fallen on us, and we have discriminated throughout the nation. 7 parties only. So please do justice to us. Thank you, sir.
We look into it.
Thank you, sir.
Perfect. So on that note, I would now request Mr. Dr. K.N.S. please come and present the vote of thanks. Thanks.
It's been a sheer pleasure listening to all the intelligent talk. I would like to comment, we Indians have a mentality that we don't like to pay taxes. If possible, we would like to save it, be it personal income tax, corporate tax, excise tax, custom tax, or any tax. This is our mentality. Even to an extent, as a joke, somebody was giving about the increase in price of petrol, and other person asked him, "Bhai, तेरे पास तो scooter car भी नहीं है, तू क्यों crib कर रहा है?" "भाई, मेरा lighter petrol पे चलता है." Or I have seen people driving very big SUVs which are on petrol and then cribbing whenever there is an increase in the price of petrol. "भाई, petrol बड़ा महंगा हो गया, भाई, गाड़ी उससे भी ज़्यादा महंगी थी." This is our mentality, but we are not wrong exactly. When we feel that we are paying taxes, although in the last 20 years we see it is being rationalized to an extent which is very good. But when we see that these taxes are not being judicially used by the government, I'll never blame the bureaucracy, but our politicians, when there is deficit and we look at the deficit, it is because of maybe populist measures, because government wants to buy votes of certain sections, or there are a lot of subsidies, which maybe are not required. When we look at Punjab, we talk about the power problem, then power is given for free. There is Atta Dal scheme, and there is a Shagun scheme, and there are laptops given freely, or cycles being given freely. So we feel a little bad only when we feel that we have paid the taxes and government is using that money to buy votes. And government, strictly the politicians. Now, a lot of pre-budget consultations would have been made in the case of railway budget also, I'm sure. Everybody would have put across their point of view that, yes, these rates need to go up. But then one person, suddenly, because of a political decision only, one person says, no, these have to be rolled back. And they are rolled back. Although it would have been a cost to all of us. But maybe I think most of us felt bad when it was rolled back only because of a political decision. They are ready to pay taxes. If they are put to all sections equally and there is some justice. I've seen that it is only India where there is so much of debate for budget and so much of discussion whenever there are some taxes or some rationalization or increase or decrease. It is the part of the government of bureaucracy to run the country. So they have to do it. They have to earn money somewhere, somehow, to run it. Perfectly okay, but we feel bad when political decisions impact the policies of the government. But yes, we are on the right track, right move. Could we have imagined a few years ago the chairman of the Central Board of Excise and Customs actually explaining the point of view of the government? We would not even dare go to him and talk. And the way duties have come down, the way we are doing well in the overall scenario, that is amazing. And there is no place to go but up. We are very positive that yes, there is no place to go but up. And it was sheer honor for us, Mr. Goyal, that in a few months you honored Levi twice for coming to our forum. And thanks to Mr. Pruthi also and Vinay Sharma for taking time out and moderating the session so well. And we thank you all for coming on a holiday at the lunch hour in such big numbers and listening to all the good talk we have. Thank you all, and before we break for lunch, I request Mr. Sanjay Gupta to present a memento to our guest of the day, Mr. S.K. Goyal. I request Mr. Sindwani to present a memento to Mr. Pruthi. And I request Mr. Sandeep Nair to present a gift to our moderator of the day, Mr. Vinay Sharma. Thank you all, and join us for lunch.